All right, so I'm gonna. That's our work on. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and call this meeting of the Finance and Personnel Committee to order. Just a few housekeeping items first. First, thank you everyone for attending today. I've been working on moving agenda items around on the calendar to accommodate the interest of what I think most folks in the room is. Please be sure that your cell phones are set to silent. And also make sure that there aren't any outside conversations while we're discussing items up here so that everyone can hear what's going on. I would encourage folks, if you do have face masks, to use them since we have a lot of people in the room. I did open a window beforehand, but we have to keep them closed so we can hear what's going on. I do also want to let folks know that we are recording this meeting for the public. So there is a microphone here in the middle of our area at the front of the room. And if you could, if anyone is speaking and they're not in this circle, the more you speak up, the more you will be picked up by the meeting. And that would be helpful. By the meeting recording device is what I mean to say. All meeting materials will be on the committee website by the end of the week. And committee members are looking at, the public also has a chance to take a look at. And let's see what else here. So just for clarification for committee members, once you have the floor from me, you don't need to keep checking in with me to make additional comments and questions. The only thing I would ask is that you don't start recognizing new people who are raising their hands to speak. If you can ask people questions, but just don't start recognizing new people if they want to speak up while you have the floor. And then once you're done, just announce you're done or give it back to me so I know I can open the floor up to other folks. Okay, so with that, Clerk Classic, was there proof of notification of this meeting? All right, thank you. Agenda item number 3, agenda approval. So I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Motion by Supervisor Gentis, a second by Supervisor Cooley. All those in favor of approving the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. We have an approved agenda. Agenda item number 4, June 2nd minutes approval. Those were sent out and they were also posted on the website. I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Motion by Supervisor C. Second by Supervisor Cooley. All those in favor of approving the June 2nd minutes signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Okay, so on to agenda item number 5, sale of 4 tax-free parcels. Treasurer Keller, please introduce.
Money is spent for this person. The rule is in the statutes that if a needy veteran wants to apply for further assistance from the state, he cannot submit an application, or an application will not be accepted unless first the resources of the county are used. That is a specific mandate of the statute. So they have full control over the spending of county money, and that is the reason why the terms are staggered 1, 2, and 3, so that there is not a aggregation of power over a period of time.
Okay, any other committee members? Okay, Ms. Knox, go ahead.
So just a couple of clarifications that I want to make. What Keith is speaking about is the state statutes commission, which is made up of 3 veterans. The county veterans committee is separate. It's made up of 5 veterans. And so what they're trying, yes, the commission will never leave. What they're proposing doing is taking all power, the commission's supervisory over me, taking it away from 5 votes and giving it to 1 unilateral command. That man I'm not saying this man, I'm saying this position, and I'm not speaking about him. It could be the next county administrator, it could be the next county administrator, I'm not specifically speaking about this county. This is a slippery slope. This is a very slippery slope. Five veterans on this works well for us. My office is very unique. It is very unique. We serve public in a way that no one else can. We do our job well in my office. I have many statistics right here to back it up, saying that as it runs now, it runs efficiently. So to try to take power away from five veterans who all have 5 votes, to put it into one man's hands, I do not believe is the right answer. Maybe for the other offices, I cannot speak for that. I am talking about my office. My committee structure, my office is unique, my situation is unique. I am an elected official. I am elected by the county board. So is the highway. So when it says elected by the people in the state statutes, that means that you supervise. And so this is a very slippery slope. He could start to dictate where my office goes. Could. Position, not him specifically. He could dictate what claims I do. He could dictate how I help my veterans. This is a very, 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 very slippery slope. Very slippery. I think that for my office, especially since board council needs to find out additional details about things that needs to reach out and research more. There are many questions about this. Many questions that are not clear. The document that was provided to the Rules and Regulations Committee was cut off. You couldn't see all the changes that wanted to be made. But I'm really passionate about this. I spent 5 years in my office, and we're doing a good job. And I have many people that can tell me that we're doing a good job. I think it needs to remain as it is.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. One thing I just want to clarify, it sounds like there might be a difference in how you guys use the menu. On this document that the county board has adopted, it calls the oversight body the Veterans Service Commission. It does not say committee. So I just want to clarify that that's how it is written today. Maybe there's some change that needs to be considered, but that change would need to go through rules and resolutions and then to the full council. So just wanted to clarify that. And then, ma'am, I know you had your hand up. And then
Frank Freeman, VFW Post 237. I'm here to represent many veterans in our post and outside of our post, and many of our VFW members are here today. With that said, what Ms. Knox said in reference to one individual having, I would say, management or control does not leave an opportunity for others to vote yes or no. So leave it as 5 individuals on the commission. Also in reference to the agenda items, on the previous agenda that was posted, there was 2 items that really stood out. Number 1, the DAV ban, where does that stand? The other issue about disbanding the commission, and that's why many of us are here today.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Are there any other new people who would like to make comments? Who haven't spoken yet?
But I would like answers on those.
Yes, ma'am. Well, and I should say, let me clear something up here first of all. So if people bring up a new topic that is not on their agenda, we cannot discuss that topic because it's not on our agenda. So, folks might bring things up, but what we're talking about today is whether or not the job descriptions for 13 department heads should be changed so that they report to the county administrator instead of various committees, commissions, or boards. So that's the only thing that we can address as a body, because we have that open meeting. We have to tell everyone what we're going to talk about before it gets talked about. So that's why we can't address certain questions. Go ahead, Nick.
So I am not a veteran. I'm engaged with veterans. I'm a state broker for Richland County. I have done many things that I would hope they would not be true. And it's done very well. I've also worked with other
Sandra Kramer, prior CVSO of Richland County. Okay. When we went to a 5 group, we never called it a committee. I wanted to, but it never stayed as a committee. It was always written down as a resolution many years ago that it was always a commission. The only reason it was increased from 3 to 5 is because the county board chair at the time wanted 3 members of the county board on the commission. It's never been a committee. And when I first started, I had 3 members on my commission. They were civilian veterans. They were not associated with the county, didn't work for the county, and was not on any committee or board of the county, separate from the county. And all they had to do was advise me, oversee the office, and take part in what I wanted to spend from the Soldiers and Sailors Relief Act for a veteran who was in need. They never supervised. I talked to them, and then we put on to the proper committee within the county to take care of anything that needed to be done above and beyond the commission. Okay.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, so committee members, we are at the stage where we've had the chance to ask questions and make comments.
Now, they got me all confused.
Go ahead, Supervisor Jenkins.
Who is supervising the head of that?
Can you repeat?
Who is supervising the head of the?
So the Veteran Service Commission currently is supervised, the county's Veteran Service Officer, Ms. Knox, who's in that position currently, is supervised by the Veteran Service Commission. So that's what our committee structure document has said in the past. It's undergoing a proposed change right now, and that's what her job description and 12 other department head job descriptions have said. And so what we're talking about today is shifting that from committee, commission, or board to the county administrator, just
Right,
for
so
supervision.
I just want to make sure that I understand. So we take all the department heads.
We're taking all the department heads who are not elected by the people.
I know.
I just want to clarify though, because that usually comes up. Right, any other questions or? Yep, Supervisor C.
Yeah, just a comment in terms of our commitment to the veterans. I myself has been, two of my brothers were Vietnam veterans. Both of them are victims of Agent Orange, my oldest brother.
Supervisor C, make sure you're speaking out there, because those are the folks who.
Okay, my oldest brother retired as a major, died as the result of Agent Orange. Many years ago, there was a movement in the county to do away with the Veterans Service Office. My father led the battle to retain that Veterans Service Office. Some of you who are older may remember that. Most of you look younger than that. My commitment personally, and I know the commitment of this committee, is to support and maintain a strong veteran service office. I think we are remiss in deprecating the system that is proposed with the administrator. He's had 7 years experience as an outstanding veteran service officer in the state and can render great help to the veteran service office. This is not a question of someone looking over someone's shoulder. It's a question of accountability. The county is responsible for maintaining a system of accountability to the taxpayers, to the citizens of this county. And all that this proposal amounts to is ensuring that there is accountability among all these departments on an ongoing basis. Doesn't mean that the administrator is going to be looking over anyone's shoulder. But everybody has to report to somebody. And a management committee by elected supervisors such as ourselves cannot adequately provide the accountability to the county that's needed when we meet with them only once a month or once every 2 months and accept what they tell us. We need ongoing daily guidance and oversight of our departments. So I am committed, and I know this committee is committed to providing accountability to the county and providing the very best service to our veterans. It was a strange circumstances that somehow someone posted an erroneous.
Okay, Mr. Steve, let's keep it on the topic of what we're at today, so.
It's unfortunate people came here.
So with this, I'd like to entertain a motion to.
Well, I just got one question.
No, we have to keep on moving because we already did, open it up to the crowd.
I got one question. Please, okay, one question.
Yes, one question, Mr. Savai. We gotta keep moving here. We got a long.
I understand that, but you're not recognizing the people out here. You should be. But I just want one question answered. There will be no change in the Veteran Service Office unless the rules and resolutions does something different. Am I correct there?
Can I answer? Yes, go ahead. Administrator Langren.
As described earlier, that any types of duties that are put out the rules and resolutions is for the county board for final change, and that's recommended through rules and resolution committee, just like our department head and my position descriptions come through this committee and final approval by the county.
Okay, and, yes, I did give folks in the crowd time to talk, so unless committee members want to hear more people, we need to keep moving. So, with that, I entertain a motion to, sorry, and I don't have it right in front of me. So, I'll make it real clear what the motion is. The motion is to present a resolution to the county board to make changes to the job description of the administrator established in resolution number 19-93 and make changes to 13 department head job descriptions established in various resolutions. Okay, motion by Supervisor Luck, second by Supervisor Kirk. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. All right. So now we are going to move on to agenda item number 6. Ms. Stillman, or Ms. Scott. I had someone else in my life named Mark Stillman when I came out. Ms. Scott, are you available to, I just want to make sure you were here. So we're going to go on to Management Information Systems FirstNet Cellular Contract. So Administrator Langren.
Yes, looking for approval to enter a contract with FirstNet for cellular services background. In 2013, County Board of Supervisors created Resolution 13-77 that states Verizon US Cellular provides cell phone services to departments of county government. In July of 2014, Resolution 14-106 was adopted that allowed the sheriff's department to use other companies' short-term testing. Now we have a new provider that may be an option for services. I'd like to add it for the availability. We have a reference website on there. I guess essentially what this arrives from is FirstNet was designated to federal and state as one of the providers that can provide emergency services response cellular. That's right, Carl?
Correct. They recently were designated and awarded a contract. FirstNet is, it gets a little blurry, but they're AT&T, which is related to Bug Tussle. They're all a company, it's just a little blurry. And they have provided services. We have demoed with them, and we would like the ability to start some licensing. There are no true contracts, there's no, like we sign, we have to stay with them for a year. It's the same exact case as it is with Verizon. You can sign today, be gone tomorrow, you can terminate at any point, which is nothing negative. It's just that our county board resolution specific was cellular and Verizon Verizon, we'd like to add, FirstNet to that.
Okay, so any comments or questions?
Is this just in preparation for?
No, it is not, it has nothing to do with the radio system, and it will not replace that.
Anyone else? Okay, so approval, all right. Motion by Supervisor Brewer, second by Supervisor Jenkins. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. So the next item, on the agenda,
Mr. Chair,
yes,
just one thing, when you, moved on from item number 12, you only mentioned administrative job description. Left out department head. You asked for that motion.
no ma'am, I read from the motion that came from, the document on our iPads, and it said the administrator and department head.
Right, when you talked to us, it's only administrative. I didn't hear you, sir, mention department head.
No, man, and I'm sorry, we've already moved on from that, so we gotta keep moving down our agenda here, so I'd be happy to talk about it with you.
Well, I just want to make sure it's department head.
It is, it was understood that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for coming, man.
Okay, so agenda item number 7, highway addendum amendment regarding starting pay rate. So Administrator Langer?
Yes, I'll be presenting for Commissioner Petrick. He is out, they're putting black down today, so advise him to oversee that operation. Looking for a recommendation, a motion to approve amendment to the Richland County Handbook Highway Addendum, eliminating conflicting language underneath section J3B and J12B for starting employees and seasonal hiring pay rates, according to resolution 1989. Resolution 1989 is the resolution that brought forward the new compensation plan and that matrix. Resolution 1989 passed on August 20, 2019 defines pay rates for starting general government employees. It says employees with less than 2 years of continuous employment as of the effective date that the resolution went into place. The new hires will be placed in step 2. This language is in contrast to the current addendum language that states that new employees and seasonal hires will begin at step 1. The county is in practice in accordance with the resolution, the later superseding document, and this is a cleanup effort to ensure consistency and eliminate conflicting policy language and confusion. No financial impact is foreseen.
Okay, so any questions or comments? All right, so I'd entertain a motion. Motion by Supervisor Cooley, second by Supervisor Seat. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 8, interim Simons Recreation Complex Director appointment. Mr. Langer.
Mr. Chair, motion to approve the draft resolution for Richland County Board to confirm interim appointment of Tracy Gobin as the interim Simons Director at the job rate of I, step 3, or $22.87 per hour, effective date of July 6, 2020, and extending until the appointment of a full-time director. Background on this, Director Linz will be retiring in early July. She has retired last week. The Simons Recreation Complex and Auditorium Board took action in June to recommend the interim appointment of Tracy Gobin as director. The Auditorium Board's intentions are then to leave the assistant director position vacant for several months to help absorb financial impacts from reduced revenues in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. In the fourth quarter of 2020, there will be a formal recruitment process for the director position. Past practice was referenced in establishing the salary rate for the interim director. Financial impact, Mr. Chair, is on the back. Going down the form, you'll see the current director rate. You'll see the interim director rate. You'll see the difference in hourly. You'll see the approximate hours remaining for 2020, 1,000. The savings in that position, that is $540. The current assistant rate, which Ms. Gilman is working at, is $18.10. The vacant hours remaining for the year equates to approximately $18,100 for that position. So total reduction, not including salaries, fringes, and pay for the director amounts to $18,640.
Okay, yes, Supervisor Cook.
On your breakdown there of the cost, it shows J step 3 instead of I at a different hourly rate.
It should be J step.
It's in the body of the, it's talking about I step 3 and 2287 an hour.
Boy, that's embarrassing. Let me recalculate. Mr. Chair, do you want to move on and I can recalculate this and come back to it?
Yep, that sounds good. So I think we will move on to agenda item number 9. So CDBG close details and presentation. So Mr. Glassberger, if you want to come up and present to our committee?
From this corner,
That's
okay?
right, that's your.
All right.
Well, the floor is yours.
Thank you. All right, so, if you've had a chance to review the information, let me just ask, is there any preliminary or, basic information that you'd like right from the start? Or have you reviewed this and have an understanding of the direction we need to move and what this is?
Have committee members reviewed this? Will you take us through?
Okay, so some time ago, would have probably been post 1993 or 95, the county was awarded monies that were given by HUD, Housing and Urban Development. It was called a Community Development Block Grant. If you have the document there that I provided, at the very top, it says the approximate balance of that CDBG fund, Community Development Block Grant, is $1.171 million. Okay? So what happened was that the Department of Housing and Urban Development recognized that these funds that had been given out to counties was not being used in a way that was efficient in their mind. And so what they did is they issued a close order. In other words, we're discontinuing that program, and if you were rewarded funds under that program, we are now reclaiming them. So that means that they are requesting the $1.17 million be returned to them. So that process is being managed by, at the state level, the Department of Administration, and the gentleman that I have contact with there frequently is Dave Polish. His department is responsible for receiving those funds back and then determining whether or not the county has provided proposals for reuse of those funds. So we have to return the money by January 31st of 2021. And if we have written projects that meet their criteria, so we've written project proposals that meet their criteria, they will turn around and send us the money back. So the criteria has changed on versus what the original fund was for. The original funds, I haven't studied in depth, but I believe were primarily for a revolving loan fund. So in other words, a business here in Richland County could go and say, hey, I'd like to start a business in Richland County, but I just don't have the capital that I need to do it. I'm falling short. So sometimes they're referred to as gap funds. So the bank won't give them enough money and they don't have enough personal capital to get the business necessarily going. So what the fund would do is say, well, we recognize that gap and we want you here. We're going to go ahead, and the county did this under a manual that managed those funds. They would issue a fund, and then the money would be returned to the county and would replace and replenish that fund, okay? So at this point, we have to send all the money back. We have the right to submit for 2 projects to use the total of $1.17 million. Also on that sheet, you'll see that there have been a number of projects proposed or considered, and I believe there's probably a number of you in this room that have worked on that and have found it very challenging, as I have, because there are very strict criteria on how those funds can be used. The main criteria is it has to have a benefit for low to moderate income populations, okay? So there's different ways that they determine low to moderate income populations, but in general, the definition is that to be a low to moderate income consideration, there must be 51% of the people of living below the 80th percentile income level for the region. Okay, so 51% of the people in a region are living below the 80th percentile income level for the region. So, for example, in Richland County, one person if they make below $39,700, they're considered to be in this category that they call low to moderate income. And there is a chart that's provided on HUD websites that tells you exactly how to get that. But let's say you're a family of 4, that number is $56,650. So HUD then went through a process of analyzing Richland County on different population groups, one of which would be the different municipalities or towns that we have. And so they have identified that Richland Center, Cazenovia, Lone Rock, Viola are all what they consider communities that fit the criteria of having people below the 51% of the people live below the 80th percentile. So that means now these areas you're able to write specific projects to try to help economic development in those areas. They also did analysis, and I did provide a map. I don't know if you were able to see that, and Sean indicated that it may not have been colored, but I did try to provide a map. There are black lines through there. That is a block that they have done surveys on to determine whether or not the people are living at that level below the 80th percentile. And then the red represents those communities that I mentioned that are more populated, for example, Richland Center. So if you didn't get that map, I do have
We've got the map and the, if you could just pass it around, starting with Supervisor Kirk, and then we'll make sure it gets around to everybody.
That was my mistake in not scanning colors.
Linda, did you?
I got
You're good. Okay. Okay. So, so some of the black boundaries on here, when you go to the HUD website and you look up and to determine whether or not we meet the 51% of the people are living below the 80th percentile, there's a number of these blocks that don't meet that criteria. In other words, the income is above that level, and so therefore it makes it very difficult to use any fund in that area. So for example, you all have looked at projects like the ambulance garage here. Well, what happens is Richland Center itself is considered an LMI area that would qualify for that, but because of the extended service area of the ambulance service, it then disqualifies it because you have Richland Center, let's say at 53% of the people, but then you move out into one of these other blocks and they're at 20, or I think they're all probably around 30 to 40. And so then they look at the number of people and they say, no, that's not going to work because you've moved beyond servicing individuals that are considered in the group low to moderate income. Okay. So for that reason and others, and I'm glad to talk through a couple of them if you'd like, but the ambulance garage didn't work. Grocery store becomes extremely difficult because you then have to get into monitoring the people that they're serving and the individuals that they're hiring, and it's extremely difficult to manage that. Senior care facility investment out of Pine Valley. I talked to Tom, on the phone about different options there. There's just a number of reasons that things will fail because all of a sudden you'll come up against one of their criterias, which aren't always easy to find in their publications. And I'll be like, what about this? Yep. No. Okay. So Simon's Rec Center, I believe you all may have looked at that project here, and we re-looked at that project because typically if it's a county-owned facility, it is possible to use these funds. Richland Center is a low to moderate income population base, so you would think, well, that's a fit. And when you're serving people that are underserviced, like handicap accessibility issues, those types of things, typically that's a win-win. But what happened with the Simon's Rec project is you got looking at that project, and let's just say rough numbers, it was a $2 million project. We could identify that roughly $500,000 was going to be directly used to help handicap accessibility. But the minute you move that project through this program, it moves to Davis-Bacon wages, which means the project cost goes up by $500,000, and we just negated the benefit of the grant. So that's what we were running into there. It's like, was it really, yes, we could get the money, but when you're all said and done, you just put yourself through a whole bunch more work to end up basically in the same place.
Mr. Glassman, I don't feel like you have to run through each one. You can just, keep going through. You've provided some good examples, so we could keep
Okay.
going through it and get down here.
So let's move to possible projects then. Is that okay, Sean?
Yeah, no, just keep going. We have quite a few more things on our agenda, so I'm sorry to push you with that.
So the projects that are easiest to attain approval for are slum and blight removal projects, public facilities, and public facilities programs, which usually is looking at water and sewer systems, sidewalks, community centers. That's why we were looking at Simon's, things like that. The one that is the easiest to attain approval on is slum and blight removal. So for that reason, because of the limited amount of time that we had to move through this, I mean, again, we have to have these submitted by January. The recommendation of the Department of Administration was, okay, you should probably look at these because they're typically easier to move through the process on, okay? So that moves us to possible projects. These are some things that I have worked on, I have talked to people about, and have had initial conversations with the DOA, and we think that there's a possibility that these could go. Now, of course, as you submit them and you get further into the details, they can always turn around and say, well, that excludes it there. But I wanted to bring these before you so you had an idea of what the list has been reduced to, okay? So there's accessibility for the city auditorium, might be a possibility. I've got an email from the Department of Administration said that on the outside looks okay. That's roughly a $700,000 project to add an elevator and handicap accessible bathrooms. You could do something with city parking lots. You could do something with the blotted light and CAS that I believe is on the agenda for today. You can do something with blotted lights and lighted lots in Richland Center and or other communities for that matter. We can do rehabilitation of housing. In other words, if there's a house that isn't at the point where you would completely demolish it, then there are ways to invest funds, kind of a little bit like the NHS program operates. I have not spoken to Viola yet, but in general, flood recovery projects can be considered. Of course, there are a lot of funds out there that also would go towards that type of issue. There is a project out there that Darren Gudgeon is looking at right now in Lone Rock, which does for flood repair of, I think it was 6 homes. You could do something with 62-year and older type of housing development, because 62-year and older are considered automatically in the LMI category for whatever reason they decided to do that. It is possible that we could do something with the city library. The next thing down is a timeline target, which I think, Sean, we wanted to look at here. Go ahead, yes.
Oh, wait, actually Supervisor Gentis, let's get through the timeline first and then we'll get into questions. So sorry to push you off.
So I'm trying to keep this as compact as possible. Hopefully I'm not giving you too much detail, but, so the timeline, July and August, it would be my suggestion that we continue to research and qualify the project ideas that are listed above and any other that someone wants to suggest. That's the same thing as a request for proposals. I mean, I can reach out to some of these other communities and say, hey, is there anything going on in your community that might work? You have to keep in mind that we've got 2 projects to do this in. So if somebody says, well, yeah, I've got something, it would be, $100,000. The next project we do, we have to figure out how to handle 1.1 million roughly. So it's difficult to move through it in 2 projects. So in September, then we would look at a county resolution to adopt a citizen participation plan, which is a requirement of the CDBG close. There's specific criteria that are listed that we have to do, that we have to walk through. We would also implement the citizen participation plan and hopefully what would happen there is it would be assigned to a committee that's already standing, and we would add a couple of individuals from the community that would fulfill the requirements of individuals serving on that committee that are of that low to moderate income category. In October, then we do project committee meeting and referral to the county board. So in other words, that committee that we just established would look through these and say, yeah, we see how, we see all the details of it. They have an opportunity to ask questions, and we refer it to the county board for approval of the project proposals. December would be final document preparation. January 1st through the 15th, I put just as an arbitrary submit the funds. So in other words, we have to write out a check for $1.17 million, send it back, along with the proposals that, are our projects. And then January 31st of 2021 is their final deadline.
All right, so Supervisor Dentis, give him a breather for 5 seconds while you try to ask.
I know this is not naive, but I looked at this ahead of time because I was really hoping we could do the ambulance garage and Simon's maybe, but I don't quite understand the difference between the auditorium and the library and the ambulance, because the auditorium is used by the whole county, and the library, I believe, has as much circulation out in the county as it does in the city.
So there's the library was, they specifically listed libraries in their documentation. So if it's a public library, it automatically is included.
It doesn't matter.
No, not from what I can tell in my reading. And when I talked to Dave about that, he said, what if we want to do something with the library? He says, libraries are easy. I'm like, okay, libraries are easy.
Well, I'm a fan of the library, just.
Yes, now the auditorium, I had asked him initially about that under, you have to forgive me, I'm new back, I was a resident here and been gone 10 years, but I thought the city auditorium was still the city auditorium, but I understand now it's held privately. But I think because it's a nonprofit, there still would be a way, but it's because, it may have been because of the city ownership. So I do have to qualify that one further. I do understand your question, but again, they set up criteria in there and you're like, well, why can't you apply that same criteria over this project? And they just don't. So sorry, that's not a very specific.
Supervisor C?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a question. If you don't mind, I'll stand for a minute. Don't want to distract anyone. Leave me here for the agenda item involving the casino.
I can stay, sure.
Comment on that agenda.
Okay, any other committee members? Yes, Supervisor Cruz?
Can you lump all those blighted lots into one?
That's one of the reasons that's really good. Yes, you can, and I talked to them specifically. I said, would you allow us to organize a blot, or I keep doing that, blot and blight. Would you allow us to organize a blight removal process that may allow us to distribute the funds, perhaps into CAS for one, for a couple in Richland Center, one down the Lone Rock? And the preliminary review from Dave Polish was, his response was, I would let you do that. So they do have some flexibility there, but that, in my estimation, that is one of the best ways, perhaps, for blight removal and rehabilitation is one of the best ways for us to use the money. And the reason is because there's a more direct return on your investment. So if we invest the money in blight removal and or rehabilitation, of course, I know that it can be sensitive, sometimes reassessment issues can be sensitive, but we take a house and move it from $100,000 category up to $150,000 category, then at least the county receives some type of return on investment. Whereas if we redo a parking lot downtown, it's really hard to determine what your actual return on investment is. Yes, it makes your community more attractive, but how do you apply? Every car that parks on it's a penny or what? How do you quantify that? So.
Okay. Other committee members? Supervisor Van Landijk?
Thank you. Yeah, this almost seems like a political thing that makes excellent headlines, but it goes nowhere fast. It's a lawyer's dream job. This is, things are so convoluted. You can't get anything done. You spend hours and hours and hours and hours, you get nowhere. Like in the service, or you away, And you go to one office, or you gotta go there, you take the whole round, and you end up back where you started, that's where you get your job done. So these people, you have to find a way to clarify and make these things work. There's a lot of excellent programs that you described that we could sorely use, but they're making it so we can't get the money. Why would they give us the money just to take it back to spend it? It makes no sense. So I think
Supervisor comment, Lee, those are good points, excellent points, that's also true, unfortunately. But, until Jason came along, we didn't have a focus on this at all. And thank God, somebody now is focusing, feels a sense of urgency, which because the timeline is closing fast, so we're a lot further along the process, believe it or not, than we were a year
have
ago.
any gray hair.
Give him time.
Been gone for 10
So I think we're gonna come up with some projects.
Right.
You may not spend the entire 1.2 million, but we're gonna come up, I'm not gonna get it all in one time.
Supervisor Cooley?
I don't think the understanding originally, the way you just explained it, isn't necessarily how I understood. It was sounded like we had to spend it all by the end of the year. Well, now that's not the case. It's going back and then we're trying to get it back.
Yeah.
So it was differently when we were talking about this last year. I think we were in the opinion that we had to find something to spend this money or we were gonna lose 1.1.
Right.
So it's good to understand. This is a nice way to explain it. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, we have a recommended motion to approve the tentative timeline. I did ask, he was just, Mr. Glassmeyer was just gonna come and present this, but I asked him if he could ask us to do some sort of a motion because this has been sitting on our plates for a year and a half. So with that, I entertain a motion to approve the tentative timeline that Mr. Glassmeyer laid out. Okay, so motion by Supervisor Turk, second by Supervisor Luck. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. So now we have a timeline for how we can get this done. So thank you for that, Mr. Glassbrenner.
You're welcome. Thank you. You're welcome.
If you could stick around, so I'm going to move several things around and I appreciate people's patience as I figure out how to navigate through this agenda here. So let's go ahead and move to item number 13, which we just talked about, the building and foundation removal bids for Casanova tax deed parcels. So Clerk Vlasic, can you please walk us through this cover sheet? Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Langer, would you mind walking us through agenda item number 13?
Okay, recommend presenting a resolution to the county board for approval of the bid from One West Construction in the amount of $54,000 for the demolition of the building, removal of the foundation for the building, disposal of the materials from the building, foundation demolition cleanup of the site, and at the site where the foundation was removed, filled and leveled from the contingency fund, fund number 11 appropriation in the amount of $54,000. All bids were received. There was $74,321 for Union Construction Incorporated Bone Rock. Another bid for $54,000 for the Wallace Construction Resource Center. Background, resolution number 19-122, adopted by the county board on October 29, 2019, approved taking the tax deed on village Casanova parcel number 111-1300-0823. The other tax parcels. The building on the parcel has collapsed. Parcels were appraised at $500 and did not sell at the tax deed sale held on March 3rd, 2020. And then we have reference to previous finance personnel committee minutes. The county has taken the tax deed of 3 parcels located in the village of Casanova. The tax deed parcels numbers again, the parcels contain 3-story brick building that is partially collapsed. The parcels have been advertised for sale through the tax deed process. No bids were received. This was at the time of the last meeting. Casanova Village Board is requesting the county take we did have also a development, I believe, with the city, helped coordinate after finding out about the roof caving in furthermore, and there was some debris on the sidewalk, which I believe was removed by the sheriff's department. Does that sound true and accurate?
Sheriff,
Sheriff and highway.
Sheriff and highway? Thank you.
well, the sheriff will do with this divide.
Maybe the sheriff, did you take this all?
I did not.
Don't know who the highway department is. Some of it.
Okay, so I checked funds on number 11 contingency through the clerk's report that's on our iPads, and we have a balance of $214,000. I believe we've only taken one other debit on that contingency fund. Sort of a guess or an estimation on my part that it was a $200 fee at the last finance meeting for a fire call in Oregon Township. So we have not touched, we are halfway through the year, and I don't believe we have touched the contingency fund very much at all. So that's what's presented before us today, is to use the contingency fund. So questions or comments from committee members? Supervisor Luck?
So I'm assuming that this is something that has to happen now, and we don't have time to put it on the list of things to clean up, and they won't pay us back if we pay for it now, correct?
That's right, there's no cost reimbursement.
Supervisor Cook?
The other, if we do get it cleaned up ourselves, that leaves us more options with what to do with the property after it's cleaned up too, is that correct? You mentioned previously that there would be certain restrictions on use of the property if the CDBG funds were used.
Yes, so when you use a CDBG fund to do something like that project, that specific project, then you have two choices. So that's blade removal. You have one choice is that the land has to sit idle for 5 years. So as a green space, you could increase the use of it by making it a green space with perhaps some park. There's some talk in the documents about being able to add like park facilities. So maybe you could, hypothetically, maybe you could do a little gazebo or something in there. But the minute somebody comes and says, I'd like to do something on that for business, then it's a change in use, and it gets reevaluated for all of these low to moderate income criteria that I was sharing with you. So if somebody came and said, well, I'd like to, own that, to put in, I want to put in a new apartment structure there, then the person doing that project now has to abide by all the low to moderate income requirements of that. So it gets very challenging to use it.
Well, it would be nice to leverage that money. It's not just free money, there's a lot of strength.
Yeah.
Okay, any other committee members? Supervisor Seat?
Yes, Mr. Vice President, as Mr. Turk indicated, free to more flexibility in themselves. The village board and a number of people in the community have talked about using this park or this space as some sort of a memorial space or park. Casnovia had one veteran who was killed in Vietnam, and in 1970, buried he has never been memorialized. Never been any time. There's one other veteran, I believe, so there's a lot of talk about utilizing that space, memorial space. Memorial Park. And, man, parents might be great. 20.
Okay, Supervisor Seat, we got to keep moving on.
That's it.
Okay, unless there are any other questions or comments from committee members?
I would like to make a motion, I would like to accept the memorial or whatever it was.
Okay, so motion by
Take it out of contingency.
Yes, motion by Supervisor Brewer, second by Supervisor Peavy. All those in favor of accepting the low bid and using Fund 11 contingency fund signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. So now I would like to Let's try to go back. Let's see, I know Treasurer Keller, I know I talked to you about moving your item up so you didn't have to stay for the entire meeting. So item number 15, county treasurer cash balance history and revenue reports. I think if we did that right before we looked at the 2021 budget process guidance, those two items go pretty well together. So Treasurer Keller, come up, and quick Vlasic, I think I'll have you run through item number 16 right after Treasurer Keller before we talk about the budget. So you're on deck after the treasurer. Okay. Okay, we'll take a moment just to look at those after Treasurer Keller. So Treasurer Keller, you want to talk through the cash balance history and revenue reports that you updated for us?
Okay. I don't have a whole lot to say. I updated the balance. I don't have the interest in your but the balance then is $12,240,703. So it's down a bit last month, but still. So good, I think.
Are you on that cash balance history?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, great, thank you. And then you're moving to the Richland County sales tax history next?
Yep, okay, and the sales tax, that came in at $93,702.75 for the month of June, which was down almost 2,000 last month, but still looks favorable.
Well, better than last.
And then, interest on investment, that I have made in there now, I don't have, the rate yet. But I didn't have made on the last one, but you'll see the downtrend, which I think that's what we're gonna take the biggest hit, at least in my report. And then we have our delinquent tax history. Delinquent tax history, I could not come up with a figure yet until the end of the July collection. But if you read at the bottom, just to show where we're at this year, we had June 30th, the 2019 balance is $4,449,124. Last year at this time, it was at $4,711,000. So we are ahead of last year. And we also have an increase. That part looks good right now, but we do, there won't tell the story till the end of July. Find out.
Okay, great. Any questions or comments for the treasurer? All right, thank you, Treasurer Keller. And then if folks want to just take a look at, there's two item 16s on our iPads. There's the investments report that the clerk has prepared, I believe. And there is the trial balance reports. So I just want to let folks have the opportunity to make any comments or ask questions on those two documents before we move into the budget. Okay, hearing none. So we are done with items 15 and 16. Let's go ahead and move to item number 11, which is the 2021 budget process and guidance. So Administrator Lang.
16.
Item 11, and I jumped around a fair amount, so I apologize. So I'll just say, first of all, so Administrator Langreck had placed a document on our iPads yesterday, and then it was updated this morning. So if you did not read the update this morning, there will be some new information here. So just be aware that you should go into the document from the most recent one on your iPads And if, make sure you've synced up your folder to get the new, most recent one. If you have trouble getting that, let me know. We're on number 11. All right. Oh, all right. Go ahead, Administrator.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'll start here. There's a lot of different things that we're going to try to encompass in this conversation. So if I'm walking down a trail and everybody's lost, by all means, Mr. Chair, redirect me. I've had many conversations, and sometimes I get lost on what we've talked about, what we haven't talked about, and making sure that I keep it in context for everybody able to prove yourself, Mr. Chair. That bottom line is looking for a recommendation today for a motion to approve a budget timeline, budget objectives, budget guidance, and a 2021 budget packet document. We include budget summary cover and a capital planning worksheet, which we'll review. Looking for Richland County to utilize the preparation of the 2021 budget. Those are the kind of the four different things: is the timeline, objectives and guidance, the documents, and then we have a motion from the committee today for Richland County to utilize these in preparation for the 2021 budget. Preparation for the 2021 budget, attached materials are submitted to Finance and Personnel Committee to review and approve. It is the administrator's intention to provide effective direction and budget process to begin the capital improvement program. The vision and changes for the 2021 budget process will include a three-phased approach: a preliminary budget, budget review phase, and a hearing and finalization phase. Second change will be an introduction of the administrator's review, which is phase 2. The third will be introduction of department budget summary covers. Required of the departments to submit, and we'll take a look at what that entails. Number 4 is introduction of standardized capital improvement planning. And then finally, the intentions are of exploring possible reoccurring loan fund to fund our capital improvements. The intentions of the administrator are to work with Finance Personnel Committee and departments in solving the many budget problems currently facing the county and to arrive at a collaborative solution. Going into the documents, the first document laid out is the 2021 budget objectives and guidance. This is what I'm proposing for your committee to consider and be in agreement with to release this out to the county and their budget preparation. Richland County Administrator and Finance and Personnel Committee are committed to a countywide 2021 budget that will meet the following objectives. Number 1, underneath levy, to meet the operating levy limits as imposed by the state of Wisconsin. Number 2, under services, within the operating levy limit, protect the effective delivery of essential services and protections. To the greatest extent possible, maintain current discretionary services provided currently by the county and or through partnerships. Number 3, respond to the COVID-19 impacts, absorb 2020 revenue and expenditure impacts resulting from the pandemic, and account for 2021 revenue and expenditure impacts resulting from the pandemic. Wages and benefits, meet projected increases and adjustments in health insurance premium costs and fringe benefits, evaluate and consider incremental adjustments in employee wages to progress towards the goal of obtaining market value as determined through the 2018 study, resolution 19-89. New equipment. We introduced new equipment expenditures to department budgets that were absorbed by loan funding in the 2020 budget for new equipment underneath $5,000. Capital improvements and capital outlays. Within the operating levy limit, maintain the county's infrastructure to ensure that future boards do not have to react to aging and broken systems, causing frequent sharp rises in property tax levy and rate. And then also to investigate annual short-term loan financing for capital improvements and capital outlay program that identifies, prioritizes projects and equipment over $5,000. And finally, preservation of undesignated general fund. Strive to build and maintain the appropriate minimum undesignated general fund balance according to resolution 15-98. I'll pause there, Mr. Chair, to let you digest the goals that I'm recommending to the committee, the county going forward for the budget process.
I think if you could go ahead and keep walking through the document, don't feel like you have to read everything. Just show us all the different pieces. That would be helpful before we start.
Okay, page 2 then talks.
I know by the time I got to the end of it, I had learned a lot, even on the last page. So yeah.
Okay. Page 2 then, we're talking about the budget summary from last year. This is to set context going forward into this year's budget. We have our summary prepared by the board chair last year. And we have our estimates of financial impacts this year as gathered through the departments and estimates. Page 3, we then have the guidance and instruction. The big piece here is operation and salary budgets. The department heads are instructed to draft preliminary budgets with a 0% increase in levy use, salaries, fringes, contracts, operations, without considerations for capital outlays. As follows, kind of in this draft to get familiar with it. In future years, these may be different, but in this year, recommending a 0% increase in levy use for all departments. Important sentence at the bottom of page 3. If a 0% levy increase requires reduction in service staff hours, then please budget and plan with those reductions. Waivers to exceed the 0% guidance may be addressed through the review process with the administrator. Questions through page 3. Going into page 4, we talk about the wage step increases. Preliminary budgets will be prepared with a no wage step increase in effect for 01/01/2021. If through the review process funds are identified as available, increases may be considered and implemented. Health insurance, we are in contact with Wallace Cooper Elliott, and they're working with courts on a renewal. We're hoping to get that information back sooner than later. And we're still waiting confirmation from FICA rates. Wisconsin retirement system rates have been released. Then we talk about capital improvements, capital outlay budgetings. All capital assets 5,000 or more will be considered separately from other expenditures and collectively within the county. Please use the provided capital improvement, capital outlay planning spreadsheet to submit your planning requests. Annual short-term loan financing is being explored to possibly help the county in engaging in needed capital improvements and capital investments. These expenditures will all be accounted for in a separate fund, with the exception of Pine Valley and Highway, which will include the projects and equipment in their budgets, but we'll submit a capital planning worksheet for tracking. So then the budget packet pieces, we'll still have the budget worksheets as distributed from the county clerk's office, which will be expected to come back and in the same format that the county clerk's office provides, with the exception again of Pine Valley and Highway. Then we'll expect also the department budget summary recovery, which we'll go through in a minute here, as well as then the capital improvement planning worksheet, which we'll go through it, and then asking for any type of supporting or narrative financial documents that they want to have to supplement and augment their proposal. Into page 5 is the consideration factors for allocation. Narration. Administrator and Finance Personnel Committee will be evaluating what you are doing to reduce expenses and if you have lost revenues, what actions you are taking to reduce the corresponding expenses. Again, we point to the audits. Closing the audit may impact numbers, and we point to the unknown variables, the impacts from COVID-19, grant recruitment, and any types of future release which may come in through federal government. Then go into the packet instructions. It's kind of sorted out by the preliminary phase, going into the review phase, and then finally the hearing, finalized budget phase. Closing remarks at the bottom of page 6. This will be a new approach for Richland County budgeting, with several major financial factors still unknown. Apportionments plans may adjust several times throughout the process before we arrive at a final resolution to take to the county board. Our goal through this process is to adhere to the established budget objectives and continue to meet the service needs of the community. You want me to continue on into the?
If you could just really quickly, don't describe each document, but just run through what you got in the rest of the packet on page 9.
The next page looks like this. It is a proposed Richland County 2021 Department Budget Summary. This, as I see, is a cover letter that departments will submit, capturing their human resources expenditure information with their full-time people that they have by numbers, the overall salaries and benefits impacts, other expenditures broken down into salaries, contracts, operations. On the back of that document, then we'll have some budget comparison data that will be utilized in the decision-making process, and then we also then have a section there capturing revenues and sources. Final, or the second to last document then is a draft on the proposed capital improvement planning. Essentially, it breaks it down into 5 different years and then the future project requests or wish list, and then states the anticipated revenue source for those capital projects. Final document in the packet is the proposed timeline, again broken into 3 phases: the preliminary budget, the budget review, and then the hearing and finalized budget. The concept behind the timeline is such where we plan on releasing the preliminary documents from the county clerk's office, the cover summary, capital improvement planning worksheet out to departments, and with the guidance then, they're submitting those back in no later than the 23rd. Those are consolidated and brought before the body for review. We then go into the budget review phase where the administrator then, in working with the departments, begins to assess what needs changes and adjustments may need to be made. Through that process, we're also hoping to get information in on health insurance, what the audit close looks like, FICA information, as well as engaging with conversations on what short-term financing would look like to supplement and augment our capital improvements, capital projects. After the budget's been reviewed, it'll be represented back to you folks for approval. And then through that process, then with the hearings and finalizations, departments will bring that to their supervisory committees. And then final proposal on a final budget will be brought to you on September 29th, 2020 for your final kick at it or your final blessing on it. Changes shortly thereafter and then published.
Okay, so I gotta, first I want to, just a second, I want to say thank you for preparing something so detailed, because we've never really had anything like this. The one question I have about, go to the bottom of page 2, this is where you've been working with different department heads around the county to figure out what the impacts of coronavirus has been, or the recession have been on county operations. And I was understanding here that we're expecting that we're going to take an $840,000 hit, but that we think that our enterprise fund out at Pine Valley is going to actually be making a good bit more. So I don't know if those necessarily equal out if the money stays at Pine Valley, or some of that money comes into the rest of the county operations for 2020. But what I'm wondering is, how does this relate to, I'm assuming it relates to the next page where you have a 0% increase in levy for departments. At least that's how you want them to initially fill out their preliminary budget. Doesn't mean that that's where we're going to end up once we find out what the impacts are by the time we get to September and October. I just wonder if you could explain that decision-making process, that recommendation.
Yes, with a potential, and again, it's a potential on an $800,000 impact, not having all the variables finalized. As a county, we're going into furloughs. We've taken other actions to help preserve our employees. So the trade-off is trying to absorb some of that going forward into the next budget. With focus then put on the levy, the guidance isn't to have 0% expenditure increases, but a 0% levy increase. There may be potential where with Pine Valley Community Village and having those extra incurred revenues, that they can be transferred and supplement other types of funds. But that would be part of the process on ensuring that that's what actually is coming in for them, and what our gap is. The appropriateness of doing that transaction would be brought through this body and then up to the county board. Did that answer your question?
That did answer my, that was my only question. Other community members? The most encouraging is I do it. The most encouraging. The emphasis on capital, on planning and improvement, budgeting for that process.
Thank you. If I can comment on that very quickly, just to establish expectations as likely as it's going to be. And I can't speak to having not went into it all the way, but I've anticipated that there's going to be a lot of things on the wish list versus the starting to put into the budgeted slots looking out 5 years, which is okay too. I mean, at least then we know we have you on what we do.
Let's just go around the room here, Supervisor.
Yeah, my biggest thing is making sure that all the departments understand that you're all in this together, and one department that's worth their that's $3 million can do a lot more help to the community and the whole town. I think understanding that just because I made my budget isn't maybe not good enough. You know what I mean? So these bigger, and I'm really stressing the three big ones, need to tighten up their belts a lot and do everything they can to try and help the county as a whole, is the way I would say. I think people get caught up, well, I'm within my budget, that's good enough. Well, no, it really is not. Because what happens is when we get down at the end of the year to finish the budget, then we're coming back and saying, okay, we're gonna pull 300,000 out of the general. That's the wrong way to look at it. We need to get better in our departments to clean them up, make sure we're doing the right things, so that we don't have to pull money out of that general fund. And it's just being fiscally responsible as far as I'm concerned, for the taxpayers, for everybody else. That should be your goal, is to reduce your budget, not maintain it or increase it. That's fine. Well, just, and the background is I'm gonna tell you the background. Every year I have to come up with about $1 million for wage increases and utilities where I work. Every year I have to come up with that number. Now, you have to make serious decisions to make sure that I can cover wage increases and utility increases. And I think everybody in the county needs to look at it the same way. If we want to do certain things, you got to find some place to get the money. And you can't expect the taxpayer just to keep getting the money. So that's what I.
Supervisor Dentis? Any thoughts or questions?
No, I think I like it. I like that we're doing it. I think it's gonna be a quick turnaround. July 23rd, right? Yeah.
Correct, for the preliminaries, yes.
So that'll be, obviously, the committee's going on that.
Not looking for committee involvement until after the review, which is going to be a different type of an animal. We're looking for departments to submit their preliminary budgets, review with the administrator. Well, preliminary budgets come back to this body, so people understand what the preliminaries are coming back as. We enter the review process with the administrator, and I'm having the county clerk office involved with that to help with the auditing to make sure that we're balanced. And then bringing that back to this body again as a proposal. Then from there, then having committee involvement. This is the reviewed budget and the final presentation back to the body.
Anything else, Supervisor? Okay, Supervisor C?
Thank you, Mr. Cooley, for so much time.
That don't happen very often.
No. A couple of things. Excellent presentation. One, I think I understand that city say their guidance and instruction to the department heads that there would be a standard format, the same format among each department head.
The worksheets will go up the same from Victor's office. And then the cover letter, or we're looking to have a standardized cover letter for
Yeah.
the summary information, as well as then a standardized capital improvement. Different information beyond that, supplemental documents from the department that would still be at their discretion.
I see. So, it would be a document that the general public would reasonably understand.
That's the goal. At the same time, though, if you look at the budget summary sheet, we're laying it out in terms of this is expenditures, and on the next page of revenues, and everybody in this room knows, but folks outside this room might not know that this, it's not as easy as doing a cut in expenditures on this line. It might impact your revenues on the next page. So, we still have to explain as to not set false illusions of how you can do business with reduction.
Another question that stands out under my magnifier here is that, I thought I heard you say that the 0%.
Right now, we're asking for a 0% increase for levy with no wage step in a preliminary budget. If money's become available and identified as feasible, then potentially there could be. But in going through the preliminary, we're saying no wage increase. Now, then,
Basically, it's going to be a free.
yes, unless money comes through or decisions are made to reappropriate money.
And the third thing that
Go ahead, Supervisor.
I'm taking some of his.
No, you still got it.
So, and the third question that I had is,
I'll fill the void then. So then with your goals, obviously, we're going to be in a position where we're gonna have conflicting goals at some point. We start looking at trying to meet what resolution 15.98 says and having the general undesignated general fund at that 25%. May put us at ends with our other resolution of trying to meet the market value from our study. So it's not going to be all neat and prime with our frame up. Obviously, we're gonna have points of conflicting values and conflicting objectives.
where it's going to be very challenging. Now I remember my third question, with my scribbles here. You mentioned Pine Valley. I think it's a good caveat to keep in mind. Not all the apples are counted, as far as Pine Valley is concerned. They took a big hit from COVID-19. Continue to take that hit in terms of emissions. And that is a very costly matter for them. Secondly, they've had to hire contract staff. Because of the increased work. It's very, very expensive. Expensive that must be paid to our regular employees by contract. Keeping that in mind, we don't know how many of those apples are going to be grown. Yeah. So that'll come to me.
Okay, Supervisor Love.
Thank you.
My only comment is that this excellent document, and it lays out the process really clearly, I think, for everyone, and I think it'll help us in the long run really solve conflicts as much as we can, given that we don't have the money. I really thank you for really making this as clear as possible, and for making it so that the department heads really understand where they stand and what they need to do, and work together.
I join Elizabeth.
Okay, Supervisor Cooey.
The only one thing I would ask, Glenn, is if we could take, so we have conflicting things, you know what I mean, we want X amount of money in the general fund, and we want to provide wage increase. What I would like to see, and all the department heads to see, is what that wage increase costs, and to entertain them to figure out how we're going to get it. So I would put it back on their heads, their hands, to say, here, we need $3 million, $4 million, whatever it is. I'm just grabbing a number. But if that number was readily available in this worksheet, so they could say, okay, to get where we need to be, this is what we need to do. How are we going to do it? And then it lets everybody see the whole picture, not just, well, I don't know what that is. That number needs to be available.
Okay, yes, go ahead, Corey. Just say that we talked about this timeline.
All I'm saying is, what's the number? There's got to be a ballpark number. It's $300,000 to get everybody where they need to be. That's what I would say, is find a ballpark number and say, we got to come up with this number.
Okay, and I know there's some, yep, Supervisor Severson.
We explore getting different, benefits plans. Health insurance.
Yes, you can, and if that's what you'd like me to do, that is an undertaking that would take time and investment to consider.
I think it's worth looking at. You with the state plan.
So, Carrie, I hear a lot of noise about the state plan. We left the state plan, and I've heard noise of what it costs to get back into the state plan. So I think the state plan is preferred, but I don't know what the cost is to get back. I wasn't on when we got off the state plan, so I don't understand why we left. But we did, I'm assuming it was money reasons or something. And for the road. Okay, so I'm just here now.
So I guess, based on Supervisor Severson's suggestion, Administrator Langrick, if you could take us through the budget timeline, and could you explain to us where, between what dates that would have to be addressed if the committee decided that we wanted you to look at that and the feasibility of that? If you could just give us your quick thoughts, off the top of your head thoughts on that?
Off the top of my head, my transition to the state plan at Green County required us to submit resolution from the county board very early in the year. It was like August or September, I believe. But I don't have it off the top of my head, but I know that they're looking for information well in advance. And that was just a change from one plan within the other plan. So I would expect that it's something that we're going to do within the next month. We would have to have a solution for it. We would take action on the latest next meeting here, go to the county board for resolution to let the state know that we're interested. What the number is, I don't know. The timing would be fresh from members living in Green County, unless things have changed. Yeah.
So you're thinking that it would be, you'd have to come back to the next finance committee meeting with a recommendation about whether or not to move to a new plan and then have that approved at the August meeting? Is that what you said?
From the best of my memory, yes. At Green County, we did a change from our deductible structure, and that required a resolution from the county board. So it was early.
Okay.
But I don't know the dates off the top of my head. It would be very, very soon.
Okay, Supervisor Love?
It just seems like with everything else we have to deal with in this particular budget, that we could put this on the horizon for next year's budget process, or we will investigate. Especially if the reason we changed from the state is because it was more expensive, likely it's not cheaper now.
Sounds like, yeah, go ahead, Supervisor.
Could you also explore another plan other than Wallace, Cooper, and Elliott, and Court Insurance, Austin, or Cypress? There's multiple plans out there for insurance.
That local hospital, that becomes the other.
Yep.
The local providers.
Okay, Supervisor Sheep? Yep.
Another issue is that it becomes late in the year before the insurance company really can nail down, based on experience with what the.
Okay, Supervisor Cruz?
I don't disagree with what Terry's saying. The problem is anytime you change benefits, it really messes with people. And it's bad enough that where it's at, maybe right now, and we've had to increase and so on and so forth. I agree with Melissa. We need a year to get this in place. We need to take what we have right now, go forward, do what the adjustments that we have to do or whatever. But it definitely needs to go on the docket to look and make it better. I agree with it. Like you said, it's too late in the year. You're trying to get that stuff done. And then you just create total upheaval on everybody. They got to keep our.
Agreed.
Okay, so, I also want to open up any other elected officials. Make any comments or have questions? Supervisor Carroll?
Yeah, on the project now, and I got my first introduction to the status of the building. In terms of capital budgeting, will we have time to generate something to address the building? The cycle, is that gonna happen?
I'm hoping to still, this cycle, have a capital outlay plan generated for the building. A brand new maintenance.
Who's the department head that does that?
Randy is quasi-department head, and myself as the supervisor will put it together. Going forward into future years, I'm hoping for us to be able to sit down, this body, to do our capital outlays and capital projects planning earlier to this time of year, so we're hitting that in May and June, and having that plan established before we get into the operation.
The other non-supervisor elected officials?
You explained
The second, I just want to make sure if there's anyone else. Okay. Okay, sorry, Supervisor.
You explained how the capital expenditures will work. Each department has come up with their own capital expenditure. And this committee goes to that, we leave it out, or leave it out.
Just like the budget process, I'm hoping that everybody can kind of put their wish list and a reasonable plan together for the first 5 years, with the things to follow. Presented, administrator goes off and talks about budget and capital outlays at the same time, to define what the capital improvement budget plan looks like. At the same time, we're having conversations with Carol Work on some reasonable options to do funding aspect of it, bring that back to the review proposal, then have the maybe take final action to improve the capital outlays at the same time. But future years, certainly better business to do the capital outlays and capital expenses before we get to operate.
All right, so I think with that, I'd go ahead and entertain a motion to go forward with the way the administrator has laid it out here in the motion to approve the budget, to outline the budget objectives and guidance for budget practice. Motion by Supervisor Sheep, second by Supervisor Luck. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. So, let's go ahead and move on now. We're gonna go back to number 8, interim Simons Recreation Complex Director appointment.
Number 8, motion recommendation remains the same. My calculations on the fact sheet, I had the wrong category for the interim director's placement. The calculation results in, rather than $18,640 savings, to a $20,370 savings. But still looking for the same motion. Behind that, you'll see the supporting minutes from the auditorium board.
Great, so make a motion there, Supervisor Cooley, second by Supervisor Gentis. All those in favor of the motion to confirm the interim appointment of Tracy Golden signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 10, capital borrowing expenditures for small courtroom.
This is an item entertained by property committee on July 1st, looking for a motion to approve expenditures from the capital borrowing fund number 75 amounting to $15,959.57 for improvements to the small courtroom. This motion includes the reallocation of funds designated for administrator's office for the small courtroom improvement project. Background is laid out there. Essentially, we're doing upgrades to the small courtroom as phase 1, and the large courtroom is a phase 2 to get our DAR system. Am I saying that right?
Yep, DAR.
DAR system in place, as well as doing some additional wiring and carpentry. We have a tentative timeline laid out. We had approval of the estimates from property committee for the bid for the carpentry work. It requires us to post the bidding. We have bids that we can put out due next Tuesday. The breakdown of the costs are laid out for you on the back of the cover letter. Again, looking for action from this body to approve allocation from Fund 75. Resolution will be brought to the county board to actually approve the bids and to start the work.
Any questions or comments on this one? Then I entertain a motion. Motion by Supervisor Cooley, second by Supervisor Seep. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 14, 5 courthouse garage doors replacement estimate and fund.
Okay, looking for a motion to approve expenditures from the capital borrowing fund number 75. Recommend resolution of the Richland County Board in the amount of $30,000 to direct or express for replacement installation of the courthouse garage doors. This has to do with the experienced garage door failure in one of the ambulance bays. They came in and did an assessment, offered a $6,200 for replacement. If we do all 5, total cost is $30,000. Looking to reallocate underneath Randy's courthouse budget of $60,000, monies that would be used for potentially for windows and other equipment to reallocate this for garage. Two other bids were solicited and did not give a bid back.
Right, so any questions or comments on this one? Supervisor C?
Move for approval.
Motion by Supervisor C, second by Supervisor Brewer. All those in favor signify by saying, oh, sorry, go
So
ahead.
we're not
Yeah.
gonna have any windows or anything?
The idea was we'd only be able to do, I don't even know how many, we could do 10 windows, and then they wouldn't match. So we thought we could replace windows that are still working as windows for us, or we could spend it on doors that aren't working for doors for us. Situation do, you know what is, feels more responsible to replace the main doors. Do with windows.
Any other questions or comments before we take a vote? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 17, future agenda items proposals. The clerk took very good notes last time on the ideas. I went through those this morning. I looked at those. I keep those at the forefront of my mind. Are there any issues that you guys have that you want to bring up? And I'll start on this side of the room and we'll move around and check it. Supervisor Love?
I just have a question that came up as I was reading through the administrative resolution. When we created that, do we have to rescind the resolution for the administrative coordinator one, that 86 dash 6? Because are they both still active right now?
I think this would be an agenda item rather than a discussion.
Yeah, I think.
That's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
we're adding to the agenda, I don't want to discuss it right now. I mean,
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Got it. I gotta get good at saying that. Take that into consideration for future agendas. The others?
Yeah.
Supervisor Left, that was it?
no, that's it.
Okay, Supervisor C?
I'd like to see consideration given providing the committees with a recording device so that the minutes of meetings recorded. I realize this can be recorded by the court. There are several committees. Can't expect the person to come home, but I know we'd like to come by. But I think that it's important to have a verbal record of the proceedings of the, find out things get lifted around.
Supervisor C, I think that would be considered under rules and resolutions, most likely and not under finance and personnel. So, yeah, so let's just ideas for finance and personnel here. Supervisor
I don't know, this is,
I was looking for money for those recorders.
Okay, well then it would, yes, then it would fit. So, okay,
we had several retirees
Okay.
from the board who had served a long time, and we've not done anything about that. Just recognition, and also I'm sure that the Silence Board will come forward with some of these for 30 years, but we need to do something for recognition for this.
okay.
Well,
Hold on just a second.
I can send us some money.
Okay, I'll just hear the ideas. Supervisor Cruz? Okay, Supervisor Cruz?
I will mention this, and what I'm going to do as board chair is refer this to the law enforcement. That was a letter from Chief Deputy Porter forwarded to me by the sheriff concerning crisis situation in the jail, overall salaries of the sheriff's department, and I don't want it considered by this committee until the sheriff.
I think it's already on our agenda.
Right?
All right. So thank you for those ideas, and we'll keep that as a standing agenda item. Sorry to rush it today, but I'm ready for. Now I would entertain a motion to adjourn to the first Tuesday in August, which is August 4th at 1 p.m. in the county board room. I'd entertain that motion. Okay. Motion by Supervisor Luck, second by Supervisor Cooey. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you everyone for coming today. For all the extra people who came today, thanks for taking the time to watch our meeting, give your feedback.
I'm not trying to kiss up here, but this is very quiet now.